WWE's Money in the Bank is about a month early compared to last year, which means it's right around the corner, just a couple of weeks away, and they're already shaping this Money in the Bank to be a very special event. On this event, you've got two of the Money in the Bank matches, and some of the guys and gals that have already qualified are pretty huge. But what if I were to tell you that they may cash in their Money in the Bank the same night? This is the Wrestling Old Head. You have entered the portal of pro wrestling.
What the world is watching.
This is the Wrestling Old Head. You have entered the portal of pro wrestling, and I am here to talk about Money in the Bank, which is only a couple of weeks away, and the implications of who holding the briefcase might decide to cash in the same night. One of the reasons why I'm thinking that, and I'm looking more specifically at the men's Money in the Bank, is the main event, or at least tentatively is the main event, is Cody Rhodes making his triumphant return to the WWE. He is teaming with Jey Uso, who is the Raw World Heavyweight Championship, the WWE World Champion, and they will be going against Logan Paul and the undisputed WWE Champion in John Cena. In this match, it's not only Cody Rhodes against John Cena for the first time since WrestleMania, but it is also a match in which both champions from both brands will be in the ring and the main event. This is a very important note because that means that whoever wins the men's Money in the Bank has an opportunity to cash in and pick and choose right there in the ring, depending on who's out. Imagine if they're both laid out in the middle of the ring, who he could cash in on. And I think that is an important point to make because there's not going to be too many opportunities for the Money in the Bank briefcase holder to figure out who he's going to cash in on and have an opportunity to cash in on both champions or one or the other within the same ring. It is a rarity, and I believe that they're doing that for a reason. So I would keep your eyes on that. One of the most popular choices right now, the odds-on favorite to win the Money in the Bank, would be Seth freaking Rollins. He has amassed a stable along with the wise man Paul Heyman of monsters in Braun Breaker and Bronson Reed. Those guys are effectively bodyguards. They're world beaters, and they could play a role in Seth Rollins winning a WWE championship after cashing in his Money in the Bank. Remember, those guys can play a major role. Imagine a Bronson Reed tsunami after a Braun Breaker spear on one of the world champions. Seth Rollins should have no problem winning after those two guys decimate the champion of Seth Rollins' choosings. Now, I can see a scenario here, like let's just play for shits and giggles here, if Seth Rollins were to win the briefcase and then later on in the night decide to cash it in, and you've got John Cena laying there and you've got Cody Rhodes laying there, and he's choosing. Seth Rollins is looking at both participants and figuring out who he's going to cash it in on. He can look at John Cena, and John Cena and Seth Rollins can have some sort of an agreement, some sort of a gesture, if you will, that would allow Seth Rollins to then attack Jey Uso. I said earlier Cody Rhodes. I didn't mean to say Cody Rhodes. I meant to say Jey Uso, but can allow for Seth Rollins to cash in on Jey Uso and beat Jey Uso right there. Jey Uso, remember, has history with Braun Breaker, has history with Seth Rollins, has a backstage confrontation with John Cena, so all of this can play in and be threaded very easily. Triple H, Paul Levesque, has done one thing well, and I must say that, is he has allowed for a lot of options as far as where the superstars in the WWE should feud, which superstars should feud, and how storylines should play out. There's been a lot of intermingling, a lot of threading of different types of feuds so that they overlap in a way where you can get fresh matchups and you can have potential main events and different storylines that can be extended or at least branching off from their feuds that they're in currently. Like, for instance, Jey Uso having a program with Logan Paul being involved in Karrion Kross by proxy based on his match with AJ Styles. Jey Uso still having a problem with Gunther and Jey Uso scheduled to have a match the following Monday after Money in the Bank. Now imagine if Seth Rollins cashes in on Jey Uso and beats Jey Uso. Now the Jey Uso Gunther match wouldn't be for the championship. I must assume that either Seth Rollins would then wrestle Gunther, or Gunther would wrestle Jey Uso in a number one contenders match. So there are so many different ways that you can play with this scenario, but one thing is for certain. Right now, I don't see anyone else in the Money in the Bank, and I believe there are 2 more qualifiers that are coming up as of the recording of this video. I only see Seth Rollins being a favorite here. Now, there have been rumor and innuendo about LA Knight. Another rumor and innuendo is that Karrion Kross would be involved. As much as I love Karrion Kross and as much of a fan of Karrion Kross as I am, I don't know if it is the move to have somebody that has been relegated to 15-second backstage clips and matches on WWE main event on syndication, that they immediately thrust him into a situation where he walks away with the briefcase. I just don't see it. Now, I would love for them to do that because it seems like Karrion Kross is gaining popularity every day, and I'm a Cross Your Heart fan for life. I am a big fan of him, and if you've been following this channel, if you've been following me on Twitter at wrestleoldhead, then you understand that I am a big fan of Karrion Kross, but I just don't think that they're gonna hot shot him to the top and give him the briefcase that soon. Now, there are scenarios where I definitely can fantasy cook away of the Kross having the briefcase being one of the more entertaining things the WWE has ever done. Imagine Scarlett shows up with an hourglass and she presents it to Jey Uso. She presents it to John Cena, giving them an opportunity to know that when the hourglass and the sand runs out, that Kross is coming after him. That would be huge. As I've stated, I'm a big Kross fan, but I just don't see that happening. What I do see right now is that looking at the list of guys that are in the Money in the Bank, that Seth Rollins is the odds-on favorite. And if he is, I just don't see him waiting, going as long as he did for, like, say, instance, when he cashed it in the first time he won the Money in the Bank against Brock Lesnar and Roman Reigns. No. I see him utilizing a strategy with Braun Breaker and Bronson Reed, where he utilizes those 2 monsters so that he can cash in immediately and win the championship. And I don't see him doing that with John Cena. I see that happening with Jey Uso, so there is more of a story. Now, honestly, Jey Uso as the world champion is nice and all, but I feel like Jey Uso is better as an underdog. He's better playing the challenger role, at this point in his career. I just don't see them having a lot of challengers that put him in a position to where even as the champion, he feels like the underdog. Gunther, he tapped out. As much as I love Gunther, as much as I think he's a world beater and he's badass, they put him in a situation where he just doesn't seem as threatening. He hasn't snapped. Even with his match with Pat McAfee, there was a little bit of a showing of respect, which leads me to believe that they're very close to turning Gunther into a fan favorite, to getting the crowd behind him. It just seems like, to me, that's the only way that you can justify that type of character change in Gunther and him not going completely psycho because Jey Uso tapped him out. So out of every challenger that's out there on the Raw brand, and even if they were to do a little bit of a draft or something for the WWE, I just don't see anybody that is coming up that could be a viable challenger that gets everybody going, like, I don't know if Jey Uso's going to walk away with this, even a Seth Rollins. So I feel like Seth Rollins cashing in at Money in the Bank is the way to go, and it presents so many different types of options, especially for guys like a CM Punk finally getting a shot at the WWE World Championship, but he has to go through Seth Rollins. There's something there with that. There's also something there with CM Punk and John Cena that should be elaborated on, that you can focus on. You can have Seth Rollins and John Cena against CM Punk and Cody Rhodes. There's just so many different options that they can toy with. So going into Money in the Bank, at the early stages right now, I will say that Seth Rollins is the favorite to win the Money in the Bank, and in my opinion, I feel like we could definitely see him cashing in if he were to win the same night. But what do you guys think? Is it a coincidence that the two WWE World Champions are going to be in the same ring at the same time the night of Money in the Bank? Is that just a coincidence? Or is it just me? You guys let me know in the comments. Thanks for coming out. I appreciate you guys checking out this video. Thumbs up on the way out. And as always, stay tuned for more.